for our life skills fall session, and it's going to be an amazing time. This is something that I've been working on for a long time, really learning and tweaking and studying the Bible my whole life. So it will be recorded, but I'm gonna have a prayer right now, and then we'll go right into uh, the life skills presentation. There'll be some slides, there'll be some props, and it's going to be a great time. So I'm going to say a prayer right now. God, please help us all to have great life skills. God, we want to have life to the full. We want to do your will. We want to really have as much health as you'll let us have. Help us to seek after you and these incredible concepts that are in the Bible and the wisdom of life so that we can really apply it all to our walk with you and be as fit, as wise in our eating as possible, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Well, yes, this meeting will be recorded, and I thank you, Dom, for doing that. And I do want to just really be grateful that Merciful Wide has really had the initiative to start Life Skills many years ago, which is meant to help people level up in their health, career, time, and finances. And this is a continuation of that. So yes, my wife and I are grateful to do this Life Skills with all of you. And what we found is the more anything you focus on, you actually grow in, because that's what your attention is, and you become more of an expert at it, and you learn how to enhance these skills. So, like for example, I grew up, I didn't like broccoli. I did not like it at all. My mom made it, I would just eat the pasta and spit out the broccoli, but now I appreciate broccoli. This is just an incredible feast, and I actually eat it quite often, as often as we have it in the house. Now that compared to Cheez-Its, Cheez-Its you've got here. Well, on the big box, it's very enticing and things like that. The problem with Cheez-Its, it's just look at this. It just fits in my hand. It's not much. And look at the ingredients here, and oh wow, it doesn't have any sugar in. So it must be no added sugar. It must be good for. No. Here's the thing. If you need a snack, okay, we'll talk about when to eat your snacks. But the reality is, all this is designed to get you to eat not one bag, but 5 of them, and get hooked on it, because it has carbs in it, and carbs are great if they're made from like healthy stuff. But this is super processed. And so most of the stuff you'll find in the grocery store is super duper processed, where the nutrients are, a fragment of what it would be if it weren't super processed, ultra, refined, and going through that. So this will actually break down into sugars in your body anyways, and that's where you get that. I feel this is good. But you'll burn through it really quickly, and then in your mind, and you'll crash, and then you'll want it again in a very short amount of time, maybe even less than an hour. So that's where you get hooked, and that's what we were raised on in popular culture today. So I'm going to show you some other things that I'm going to show, some more healthier options. If you want a snack, have some olives. Call them out olives. The ingredients, there's not a lot of extra added ingredients. They're great. I have them quite often. You want a little extra flavoring to things, you put on some olive oil. I actually add on olive oil to when I have nuts in the morning. I have nuts and seeds, and a little bit of fruit at the end if I want something sweet. And then, of course, have sunflower seed. I don't recommend buying them in small amounts. You just get ripped on the price. Find somewhere where you could buy it in bulk. and they're great mixed up with all kinds of things. I also found a place that you can buy 10 pounds of pecans. So I have 10 pounds of pecans. So I'm just showing you our cabinet that you really have to do an inventory of what's real food and what's like kind of like a mutation of food. That's, like a food derivative that's not really the real thing. Yeah, you could survive, for a little bit, but not healthily. Then, of course, if you want to sweeten things up, there's some natural sweeteners that I use a lot. This is aniseed. Again, I get it in bulk. Aniseed is really good. You can put it on all kinds of things. Your cereals, put on salad. And then somewhere around here I have cinnamon. Yeah, cinnamon's really good. Cinnamon actually has a nice flavor to it. It's a great spice to slightly sweeten things up. So those are just some of the things. Oh, and then of course, if you forget all this, then of course, I trust the labeling, right? Well, because it says that I could scan here on these Skittles to unlock the rainbow. Wow, I can unlock the rainbow on these Skittles. These Skittles have absolutely zero grams of protein, zero. Okay, they do have, of course, 42% of your daily allotment of sugar, and the ingredients is basically various kinds of sugars, and there's nothing in there. Why do we have this in our house? I don't know. Actually, I think one of the kids left it behind after a party. They had it out, and again, I'm not saying you can't do, have, little sweets every now and then, but you gotta say, if this is your lifestyle, and this is my lifestyle. We were raised on, stuff like this. It was just normal. That's just what you do. And you have your snacks, and you beg your mom at the grocery store for the treat. And then of course you have in the old days we used to have real candy bars like Hershey, and you knew you were eating junk. Now you actually have what passes off as like a granola bar or a protein bar. But it's really if anytime you see a granola bar, anytime you see a protein bar, just rethink in your head, it actually says candy bar. It's really a candy bar. All right. It's a piece of candy. Same thing with orange chicken. It's not orange chicken, it's orange colored candy. All right. So what we're all doing here, I'm just having a little fun, helping us get to the truth of where we're really at. So I'm gonna share my screen now, and we're going to go through some slides, and we're going to see really what all this is about in the scriptures, what do we need to do differently, and how in the Bible we're going to be able to use those tips to eat wisely. So we're talking about the life skill of health, but if you see on our wheel, it's actually going to relate to money saved as well as time saved, because you'll be less burdened with poor health, and you'll have better energy, and you'll be saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars if you do this according to the scriptures. And this is really something that it's something you have to have a deep conviction about, that it's in the Bible. We're going to show you some scriptures that are super exciting, like in Matthew 15, if you could see it there. We're going to kind of basically compare first century food versus food of today. So first century food was very specific. Think of things that you could see at a real farm. That's the context of what Jesus was talking about here. Matthew 15:17. Don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But you got to ask yourself today, if I eat these packaged stuff, will all of it actually come out of my body, or will it stay there forever as flubber? You know what I'm saying? You got to realize so much of today's so-called food is masquerading as healthy food, but much of it never leaves your body. And I know that because I started gaining weight the more I started eating junk. It's just a condition of the chemistry that God set up. Look at the parallel verse in Mark 7, verse 15. Beginning in verse 15, he says, nothing outside of man can make him unclean by going into him. Rather, it's what comes out of a man that makes him unclean. After he left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. Are you so dull? He asked. Don't you see that nothing that enters a man from the outside can make him unclean? For it doesn't go into his heart, but into his stomach, then out of the body. In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on, what comes out of a man is what makes him unclean. For from within, out of the man's hearts, comes evil thoughts, sexual morality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and make a man unclean. So the context of Jesus declaring all foods clean was, they're talking about, again, real food that's like, from a farm or baked with fresh, real ingredients. That's the context. And he's contrasting that with spiritual defilement. So we got to watch our hearts and really take care of our bodies by eating real food. It's so different than today. You're going to be astounded the more you look into this. First or 2 Corinthians 7 in verse 1, talk about contaminants. It says, since we have these promises, dear friends, let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates body and spirit, perfecting holiness out of reverence for God. This word contaminants, it contaminates, it also is translated as filthiness. And he mentions the body. So it's not just, well, I'm spiritual, I've repented of my sin and, I don't hate anybody anymore. He's not talking about that simply. He's saying, watch your body, watch what you put in. Yes, all real foods are clean. That doesn't change, but you got to decide at some point, is what you're looking at a real food, or is it a chemical experiment started in the 19th century that's still, going on today, that's really not so tested? You got to really take care so that you're not defiled by what you eat. Processed sugar is just continues to be so prevalent today. It's in everybody's pantry. It's in every grocery store. It's a business. It's not a health product. It's a business model. Is cram as much sugar as we can into the people because it's 66 billion in global revenue. And make no mistake, this is addicted. I've gotten addicted to this stuff time and time again, and I've had to go through a withdrawal period. Usually the withdrawal takes about, for me, everybody's different. It takes about a week and a half to really get off this stuff where it's not a pull again. But for me, that means I've actually been fasting from cookies for 10 years because I know that what it does to me, it just leads me to make bad decisions about my health. So I've actually been fasting for 10 years for a specific reason, for people that have disabilities, mental illness, and that we know, to be completely healed. And I realize it's good for my health, and it's also good for the people that I'm fasting for. And it tells God I'm very serious about this. And I remember reading one book. It said that if pretend processed sugar was discovered today, like they took cane sugar and figured out how to process it, it totally turns into something else. And if it was discovered today and they try to pass it through the Food and Drug Administration, there wasn't this 66 billion industry behind it, it probably would get very heavily regulated as a drug. It wouldn't be classified as a food. But that's we're heavily influenced by business models today. That's just the reality of life. So it lowers immunity. It totally lowers it. You'll get sicker more if you have a lot of processed sugar in your diet. It, of course, increases waist size. I've seen that multiple times in every decade of my life since my teens. Increases your weight size. It's known to cause obesity, diabetes, cognitive decline, tooth decay, and research is showing that it may be causing some cancers. But that's our culture. We love to go to the Italian grocery store, Denise and I, and look at all the treats. It reminds us of our childhood when we're with our grandparents and they're telling us about the old country and all that. And you see the sweet stuff. But what you got to realize, you got to reset your eating culture. You just got to reset it and create a new culture, because if you want to be a disciple, you're a new creation, and so many things need to be. You got to reset. You got to start all over. And it's the same with eating. If you want to be healthy, eating, it's mostly a mental thing. It's how you think. And the reality is good feelings, nostalgia, sentimentality, they don't always equal good health. For me, I found that it almost never equals good health until I reshape that. But really, eating really is mostly a mental thing. I mentioned food mutations. That's just something I came up with. But a mutation means significant and basic alteration. And if you realize what happens to cane sugar or some of these flours that passes off as healthy foods today, breads, white bread, and stuff like that, it's nothing like what they had in the first century. The Bible says that that Israel was a land flowing with milk and honey. But you got to realize, honey, it was a delicacy. It wasn't like you put it on everything. You couldn't afford to. You had to, become a beekeeper and process it very, extract it in small amounts. It was a very light delicacy used infrequently. So the food today, a lot of the food in the grocery store, the processed stuff is, it's really a science experiment, a chemical experiment, and you're the mice. And my conviction is, in a couple decades, they'll be kind of laughing at what we've passed off as food. This is an old photo I took of a potato chip, and it actually says that it on the package it says healthful foods. I don't know what universe potato chips are healthy. That's just, but that's what was believed. And if you can notice along the top there, you got people playing sports, and of course that's what you need to do when you play your golf. You need a big bag of potato chips, a giant tin of potato chips, and to go skiing and sledding. So it's just silly, but that's what we've been sold. It's just to advance your business, the business model. In any business, for the most part, health isn't the focus. The focus is on making the business sustainable and growing it through profits. That's the focus, profit. Let's look at Genesis 2, 16. It says, and the Lord God commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it, you will surely die. When you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die of it. You're gonna die if you don't restrain yourself from certain things in this life. And so abstinence was actually built in to the plan. Like he crafted all this stuff to have us understand about, hey, there's certain things we just got to stay away from. And everybody's different. Some people can stay away from, just a little bit of things. For some people, they joke with just looking at carbs has them put on weight. And I know that's not true, but and carbs are good in moderation, but you have to know how to abstain from these certain things. But abstinence, it means you're restraining yourself from doing something. You're not just going hog wild. Let's look at the self-control that was expected in the Bible in Proverbs 25. In verse 27, it says, it's not good to eat too much honey, nor is it honorable to seek one's own honor. Like a city whose walls are broken down is a man who lacks self-control. So even though they had the land flowing with milk and honey, they were still expected to have restraint, to abstain from just having it on everything. It was a light delicacy so that you can have the last word here, self-control. God baked that into the plan. You know, with packaging, the scripture in 1 Thessalonians 5:21 holds very true to test everything. So don't you can almost ignore what it says on the front and just read the ingredients carefully. And the more ingredients that don't make any sense and they're chemicals, the more skeptical you got to be. You know, so you see this ingredients here, it just says peanuts. And then there's other ingredients that might be in it because it's in a plant where they process all this other stuff. But you can know you're basically getting peanuts, no salt, just peanuts. And that's what you want to look for, whole ingredients. We're going to talk about glucose spikes here because that's a big, big problem. And if you can understand this concept, you'll really be in a great position. So glucose, it's Greek for sweet. And we're talking about the sugar in food. That's usually what they refer to as glucose. And glucose levels, it measures the amount of sugars in your blood. And so when we talk about a glucose level spike, it's going to be high after eating a lot of meals with sugars, a lot of starches, a lot of carbs. They all break down into the same thing in the body. And we have to realize, if you look at the red line here that goes way down, that's a crash, and way up, that's a spike, and then way down again, this is the person that I used to be, where I was just addicted to sugar. Every meal had to have a lot of sweets in it, or sweets afterwards, or sweets in between. And so I was had a lot of energy and then crash and be kind of moody and down and unmotivated. And then I got to eat some more, and it's just up and down. And this really leads to a lot of health problems. The more spikes and huge drops you have, crashes, because what you actually want is more of a steady flow. You know, you have a meal and yeah, it'll come up a little bit. And then, you know, you stop eating, you go down, then the next meal up a little bit. This is what you really want. You want to regulate this heavily. And it's so influential, the crashes, that it influences your mood swings. It'll have you have more cravings. So if you have a lot of added sugar, processed sugar in your diet, or stuff that or breads, carbs that aren't super healthy, and they turn quickly into sugar in your bloodstream, you're going to get cravings way more than if you were eating a healthier, balanced diet. Sluggishness is going to come, brain fog. And believe it or not, the research is starting to show that the more spikes and dips you have, the more frequent, the more higher they are and frequent throughout your life, that actually increases aging. So you want to really watch yourself with these things, because you have to learn how to eat things in a certain order, which is what we're going to talk about. This is a really important slide to understand it. So picture, if you could look at this, picture like your mouth at the bottom of this chart, and your mouth is open, and this is the order you should be eating things in. First, the vegetables, then the protein, so the nuts or the fish, then the starch. So a sweet potato, or a piece of fresh, organic, whole bread with nuts in it. Then, if you need something sweet, then you would have fresh fruit, or if you can get, healthy frozen fruits like frozen blueberries at the end, if you want something sweet. What I've found though is if you start eating with this or in this order, you actually don't even need as much sweetness because all the flavor really helps you reduce your spikes, because what you're doing is you're creating a filter for anything that turns into sugar, so it's not released as quickly into your bloodstream, and you don't go up as quick and you don't crash as hard. That's what you want to do. You want to start ordering, and that's just what I do. I actually eat food in this order, and I've had way less cravings. I'm not as hungry, and I'm eating way healthier. And you can see I still have energy, and I'm closer to 50 than I am to 60. And this really does work. So you really do want to know to have a solid control of this. It takes discipline. And sometimes somebody else will serve you something. Just don't eat it if you don't want to eat it. You just remove it. So, for example, somebody served me something, and when I was addicted to sugar, I used to like these things at the top, these little sugary processed bread, dried fruit little things, and they're delicious, but they're just loaded with sugar. And I'm just like, I'm just going to remove these. Don't think if you keep them in your plate, you just don't eat them. I have to remove this stuff right away. It just helps me. And then communicate with the rest of your household and try to win them over to healthy eating so you could all be on the same page and you're not left with Skittles, left over in your household. I just kept this as a visual aid for this. I'll probably dump it after this. So you really want to get everybody on board. And where do you do your shopping? It really does matter. You want to go to grocery stores, but just the fresh section or the frozen section if they're a whole real foods. Farmers markets are great if you can get your nuts in bulk. And I've done some calculations that you can save if you start doing meal prep and start buying healthy foods and reduce your going out to eat. You could literally save 300 to 500 monthly. And this really does work. You'd be surprised how low Denise and I's food bill is. But it does take planning. And you have to, what helps too is starting with a savory meal first thing in the morning. A savory meal reduces your spikes so much, and you stay full longer. In the back there, the water is actually water with apple cider vinegar, because what I do is I take a tablespoon and put it in my water in the morning, and this really helps you to lower your spikes as well. So to change the culture, you also want to have healthy hospitality, because sometimes in our culture we want to have people over and have great foods, but their culture might be they bring soda, they bring chips, and they bring all these cookies and maybe one tiny bit of healthy option. So you don't want to do that. You really want to make sure you practice hospitality, like in the Bible times. You use healthy things wherever possible to change the culture. You got to reduce your eating out as much as fun as it is. We can't be going to Al's Italian Beef as much as we used to. This is back in Chicago, so we're not going to be doing that. But yeah, the beef could be healthy, but that loaded bread that's not really made with the kind of bread they used to make in the first century, it's just not going to do you well. So you got to use it. You still go out, for the fun times, but think of it as an infrequent treat if you can afford it. You do got to manage that stuff well. When you are eating out, you want to ask about ingredients, realizing that too much, if you're going to be having too much pleasure now, and you're in your 20s and you're eating out after Devo every week, you're going to have some pain later because you're creating patterns and habits and even sugar addictions that it's going to be, and like patterns of your brain thinks you deserve to eat at night because that's what you're trained to do. It's going to be very difficult to break it in your 30s, 40s, and 50s when you're possibly less active. So discipline now, even in your 20s, equals discipline later. It totally, totally works. Remember the purpose of meals. It's it's not for debauchery, boredom, and insecurity. Go to my insecure foods. Purpose of meal is energy, nutrients, some pleasure in moderation, but also to give thanks and to have great fellowship. So you need to make sure you know why you're eating. And sometimes I catch myself, wait, I'm eating for no reason. I just got to stop. No, let me put this back. You should learn how to cook too. It's a life skill. Ask somebody who's more experienced, shadow them. And of course, if there's, unhealthy ingredients or ingredients that, are going to be a problem for you, try to stay away from them or substitute with healthier stuff. So just review a few things. You want a savory breakfast, so not sweet in the morning. You want to eliminate processed foods, eliminate added sugar. Another tip is to walk for 10 minutes or do something active for 10 minutes after eating. It doesn't have to be a whole workout. Just walking for 10 minutes after each meal would be good. Also, snacks, no. Dessert, yes. Because a snack, an hour after eating is going to create another spike. So, but the dessert will be filtered with all the other fibers in the food that you ate for the meal. So the dessert could be okay in moderation. Try to eat also within an 8-hour window, so that you're not just overextending your stomach. Let your digestive system rest. So I try to eat at an 8-hour window. So I have to count what time do I eat breakfast. Then I can add at 8 hours, and I know when my last meal needs to be for that day. And like I said about the apple cider vinegar, before each meal, put a tablespoon in water and drink that beforehand, and that'll actually usually lower your glucose spike by up to 30%, which is great. You're going to save lots of time and money in the long run with these health benefits, and not wasting money on eating out and eating processed foods and stuff like that. You'll be less sluggish, as I said, more energy, less wasted expenses on stuff that's only going to create more of a tire around your waist. And you could save up to $6,000 per year. You're going to have sharper thinking. You're going to have less sick time. So again, that's more money and greater immunity and more productive days. So you want to become a wise eater like the eaters in Acts chapter 2, who broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Then you're going to have to use some self-control, which is the fruit of the Spirit. And then you too can be breaking bread together just like the first century in a healthy, sustainable way that's not going to create a situation where you're ashamed of your body. You're grateful that you're eating in a way that God designed, in a self-controlled way, and you'll have greater health and be more effective for the Lord. So